Hey guys, it is Sunday Reflection Day. So I typically go live every day, but I did not go live whenever I was in Mexico. If you see how dark oh my God, I'm so dark. And yesterday we came home and it snowed on us. Anyways, I did not go live when I was in Mexico because we have a ranch hand that's here that's taking care of our facility whenever we're gone, and we just didn't want him to have to deal with anything if somebody came and tried to mess with him or anything like that. So we don't ever post that we're gone until we come back. Anyways, holy smokes, as soon as I get on here, I'm freaking yawning. So, all right. I had such a mental, I had issues with going on vacation in January because I am so like rah-rah-ree, kick them in the knee and like, let's go. You know, I'm such a motivated person. I love New Year's. But, you know, this year I'm really trying to slow down and go deeper into the things that we already have instead of creating more. Anyways, I think it was a wonderful thing for me to take a vacation in January because it's cold here, right? And B, it kind of sets the year off of like, what are you doing all this work for, you know? So, but I will tell you, I had guilt. I had guilt going on vacation, which is the dumbest thing in the world. Anyways, I'm over that now. And like, it was pretty hard to come back and get back into my rat race. You know, and I think I've got I didn't get to the phone calls of responding to everyone. I didn't get to the social media of notifications of people that contacted me for reservations through social media. And I think I have about 80 more emails to go through, and that's not even the junk ones. So it's going to take me a little bit longer, but I'll get that done. And this next weekend, we have a homesteading event that is completely full, and I'm trying to get everything together with that. So tomorrow, the lady who's teaching the homesteading event with me is Miss Mariella. I'm going to come and pick her up, and we're going to get all set up. I was going to come out here and just work for a little bit because my husband is watching football. And so I like to give him that time. And I was going to come out and work a little bit, and then he just had to leave because he is a volunteer firefighter. Because we're so far out in the country, if we waited on the fire department, like people's stuff would be gone. So like all the farmers and stuff have a volunteer fire department around here, and they freaking get called a lot. So people drive way too fast out in the middle of nowhere, and then they're not ready for a curve. Anyways, I know one of these days my husband's going to come up and there's going to be somebody that's not alive anymore in one of those vehicles, and he is not designed for that. So, I don't know how to say your name. I think Dulce. I don't know if it's Dulce Vida. That's a very pretty name. I don't know if it's said that way, but reading it is very pretty. Someone just said that they love me. You must love crazy people. All right. So with this being a reflection, that book I'm reading right now, The Molecule of More, for people that are just now like coming to my shit show, I'm always getting spammed, and people are always trying to say, oh, we're trying to get onto your podcast, or hey, won't you come be a partner on our podcast? And then it's somebody just trying to like scam me, right? Well, I looked up the person that I got an email saying, oh, I'd love for you to be on my podcast. Well, then I looked up the person, and it turns out they're like super fancy pants. And I contacted them and was like, hey, here's what it looks like when somebody's trying to like spam you. and say, that they wanted me on their podcast. Well, anyways, that dude was like, hey, well, I'll actually be on your podcast. And so I interviewed this guy that sold 1 million copies of his freaking book called The Molecule of More. And he's one of the longest returning professors at Georgetown University, which is like way prestigious, right? Way more prestigious than somebody wearing a glitter hat with a hoodie on right now in Missouri. Anyways, I did that podcast with him, and like I was just in love with the words that he talked about, and I've got to get that podcast. I'm pointing to my podcast like you can't see, but I've got my podcast equipment over there. I've got to edit it so y'all can like listen to that podcast of that guy with that book about understanding dopamine. Well, dopamine is what drives addiction. It drives motivation. So there's like a yin and yang of dopamine. Dopamine is like whenever somebody gets super charged up, and like it talks about astronauts, and talks about astronauts about how they're like, well, what else can I do besides walk on the moon? And then it talks about people that are alcoholics and drugs and like how that addiction works. Well, there's also just people that are addicted to pornography and to spending money and to food and to all this exciting stuff, right? Well, the opposite of dopamine is like, so dopamine is, you think about the future, it's your wants, and you need to equal that with the here and the now, like what you can actually experience with your senses. And so a lot of people, like, for example, when you're like, whenever I was on the beach and I look up and I see someone in the airplane, then I'm just like, oh man, I wonder where they're going to, right? But instead of just enjoying the beach that I'm on. But then the people that are in the airplane are looking down at the people on at the ocean being like, oh man, I wish we had one more day. So you see, like, people are always wanting and liking are two different things. So my reflection for this week, things that were said in that, is sometimes we want things that we don't even like because we're so geared to want and like never be happy. But there are some issues with that. Like, for example, it's kind of got me thinking because, like, my husband and I own this horse trail riding facility, and we freaking, man, when we first bought this land, and this land's been in my husband's family since 1906, but when we bought this land, nobody had lived here since 1979, okay? And we lived in a horse trailer and didn't even have a bathroom, used a 5-gallon bucket with cat litter in it for 2 months, using the bathroom in that. And now, now we've got all these buildings and stuff like that. And my husband's like, oh, I got to finish that pipe fence. And I'm like, oh, I want a porch over my door going into my workout room. And I'm just like, wow, I need to chill out with that, because we're so, if I could blink and it be 12 years ago whenever we bought this land, I would be like, wow, look at this, but instead we just push to do more. And I'm like, when am I going to be happy with what I have right here, right now? So that right there are endorphins. And I need to flip off that dopamine telling me to do more. So it kind of like hit home because I already had the goal this year of pulling back on some things that I've been doing and going deeper into the things that I'm already doing. Like, for example, we have something that I think could help every horse person in the world. It's called Country Tough Trail Versatility. And we had paused that just for a year to get some things straight mentally and financially and stuff, and get our life like headed in the direction that we're wanting, for my husband to be happy and for me to be happy and both of us to be happy. But now that that's back, I got rid of my magazine, Country Tough Times, even though I had a very successful year I started a magazine. It's in like 22 states. I had like almost 30 different contributors, and some of them were very famous that wrote for me. But I needed to pause that magazine because something that we've already put 8 years into, I want to go deeper into that and make it even better. So I'm trying to calm down on the expansion of stuff. Basically, I feel like I wish I had 4 lives because there's so many things that I want to do. But that right there is some like ADHD like a mofo, okay? And I'm trying to calm down and do things better instead of more, okay? Anyways, this morning, I don't know if you've seen my ice water bath that I did today. By the way, that was like the tannest I've ever been. And then did an ice water bath and had snow. We had snow here. Good God. Talk about, my body was like, girl, what are we doing? You know, you went from the sandy beaches to one day to an ice water bath with snow in the background the next day. But in that book, it talks about how people can get more motivated. And there was actually 3 ways that you can like actually increase motivation. But I do want to tell you, I know a lot of people in January, everybody's trying to live their life better, right? And they're trying to be motivated. It's your habits. It's your habits that will carry you towards your goals more, okay? But before you can like have new habits, you've got to have that surcharge, that plug of motivation. But motivation will leave you. So you've got to have those habits to pull you through. Oh my gosh, I need a water like a mofo, and I do not have one. Anyways, so the way to have more motivation, the number one thing, it says that we do not trust what we hear. We trust what we say. That was the biggest thing. And I was like, wow. So I asked my husband, I'm like, are you going to make freaking high-end epoxy tables like you're wanting to? And he's like, well, that's the plan. He's like, well, I think I am. And I was like, ooh, what I heard him say was insecurity. And so I was like, no, David. And I was like, are you going to make high-end furniture? Are you going to? And then for him to say, yes, I am. Man, that was hard. I had to plug him like 2 times to get him to say it. And that's what we're doing all of this work for, is because he's always wanted to do that. But then instead of doing it, you know how like whenever I have something big, I'll start cleaning the house instead of actually doing what I was wanting to do. It's like displacement of my energy. And that's why my husband has decided to do 1 million new fences, because it's time for him to do these, this fancy furniture he's always wanted to build. So then I told him, I was like, do the same thing to me that I just did to you. Okay. And he's like, are you going to lose all of this weight? Are you going to lose this weight that you finally want to lose and everything? And, I always tell people, I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to lose 100 pounds, right? And I felt my nose tingle whenever I said the words, I am going to lose 100 pounds. I have so much that I want to help the world be a better place, that I'm like, and I said, the reason I want, you always have to tie into your why, right? You have to tie into, it's got to be a strong why for you to really lock in on a goal. And I feel like I could be impactful with a book that I want to write, not my children's books, but I know I could be impactful with my children's books. I feel like I can be impactful in helping other people set their goals and help them achieve them. and I need to be around longer. I need to live a very long life to do everything in it that I want to do. So for me to have to say that, I needed a little dose of my own freaking medicine. So this book has done something for me, just reading the 3 ways in which to increase motivation. But the first one is, we don't trust what we hear. So whenever somebody says, Brandy, you're awesome, Brandy, I think you can change the world, like hearing that, but then saying it. Me saying, Brandy, you're a good person. You have a wonderful story. And I'm not ready to put it all the way out there of some stuff that has happened to me, because it will bring a tear to a glass eye, okay? But I know that people are going to relate and connect to me with how much I was able to push past that, okay? So that was the first way to gain motivation. The second way was that you have to avoid any trigger that makes you not stick to your goal. Okay, so it talked about a heroin addict in this book, about how he had been bleaching. This is pretty hardcore for regular people to be listening to, but how he had used to use bleach because he didn't want to get HIV from the needles, so he was trying to clean the needles. Anyways, but every time this man, he was trying to clean up his life from being a drug addict, he'd go grocery shopping. And then he would have this urge to do drugs. So he was like, I've got to stop grocery shopping. Well, it turns out it was the scent of the bleach that had triggered that thought of drug use. And it just makes me think about, sometimes whenever I get a big case of the screw it, I'm ready to cheat on my diet real bad, right? Then I will, there's things that I will do. So like it says to avoid those triggers at all costs. Like if you have people, whenever you get around them, if you're trying to not drink anymore, but you have people that you drink with all the time, you have to avoid them. Avoid those triggers. So that was one thing. And then the third thing, it talks about AA for alcoholics. This is about gaining motivation. So it was, you got to say it to hear it. You've got to say it, and then you have got to avoid triggers. And this is how to become more motivated. And then the third way was to have a group of people that have the like goal that you don't want to let down. Okay? Because it turns out that emotion of letting someone down is a huge, it's stronger than the power of addiction. So, I cannot believe, now that I've read the book that this man wrote, and I'm not even done with it, I just can't believe I got to talk to him. I'm going to call him after I finish reading this book, but then I've got to be cool or I'm going to seem like a freaking stalker. So, something else that was in that book that it talks about the brain of people that are schizophrenic, and the creative mind and the schizophrenic mind are closer related than the mind of normal people that do not have that creativity in them. And I'm like, oh, whoops. Yeah, because I am super creative. And so it talks about dream world and about how creative people can let go of what the social norms are on something and take it apart and put it back together differently, and how not all people are geared that way. But in this book it talks about the science of schizophrenic people are more closely related to creative people than normal people are connected to creative people. And it was just that was just kind of weird. So, what's the name of the book, please? It is called The Molecule of More. And it's changing my life. I mean, here I am. I'm like a chubby cowgirl in Missouri, right? That's trying to like get healthy without being crazy. And that book has changed me. But I'm a big reader, but I always have to read short amounts because reading puts me to sleep. And then I also know that I have a little bit of a reading comprehension issue, so I'll have to read something over and over and over. So it takes me forever to read a book, and it helps for me to verbalize it, so then I really have to process it. But by the way, if you've got kids or grandkids that are playing games, like they're big time gamers, holy smokes, the science behind that. Oh yeah, I hope there's people on here that have like family. You need to go burn those damn things. They are talking about how in casinos, book, The Molecule of More. Yes, somebody just posted that. Okay, so those freaking gaming things are 5 times more addictive than the slot machines of a casino. Okay, I didn't realize that I'm not a gamer. I dated a gamer before, and it was always I always felt like I was the second woman or something, because the game always came first. So I am not a big fan of gaming, but they talk about in there like the whole science behind it, and about how it keeps you hooked, and it's like there's a whole science behind the fail rate, and also how many levels something needs to be. So the fail rate, as long as they're winning 25% of the time, they'll stay hooked. And 15 levels is the optimal level for something. And it talks about how the way that you have these dopamine spikes is by like if you're always trying to get this treasure chest that has something in it, right? But sometimes whenever you get a treasure chest, it doesn't have what you were trying to get in the game in there. It might give your player like sunglasses, or it might give them extra energy, or make them be able to jump higher instead of like whatever they were trying to get from the game. That unexpected winning is a dopamine spike, and people can get addicted to that dopamine spike. And then on those games, they talk about with children about how it's making them social, they're not developing correctly, and then it's actually messing up their brain for whenever they become an adult, because they didn't have the things that they needed. Like sitting in front of a game and playing is not the way the human brain needs to be developed. So if you have grandkids that are little freaking gamers, you need them to hate you and freaking burn those damn things. They also, in that book, it also talks about how porn used to be extremely hard to get your hands on, okay? Like you had to be like brave enough to go buy a naughty magazine right at a gas station or something, or Lord forbid you had a subscription and they would send you the naughty magazines to your house. But now you can see anything you want to on your phone. You can see anything you want to on the internet. And now they're talking about how that right there, with the increasing of how fast you can see different naughty things, that porn is like a major problem. Anyways, you need to read that book. It's a little bit like a few areas I'm just like, for the love of God, I don't want to talk about alcoholism anymore. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic, you know. And then it talks about schizophrenia, and it talks about dreams, but it talks about a lot of stuff about how we need to stop always wanting more. And so, anyways, that's my reflection for this week. I officially talked about heroin and schizophrenia, porn. But you know what? Like, if it's making me be like, girl, you need to be happy with what you have. You know, and whenever I talk, his name is Michael Long, one of the co-authors of that book. Whenever I interviewed him, damn, I lost what the hell I was going to say. Oh, I told him, I was like, it reminds me of the Sheryl Crow song where she says it's not about having what you want, it's about wanting what you have. And that's exactly what that book's about. So, anyways, I would highly recommend reading that thing. It's interesting, and it's all science-based, and I love that. I'm not a big fan of fiction. I like to read things, but this right here has me like analyzing everything that I do. So, all right. Well, that's your reflection, and tomorrow is Monday, and it's back to Mindset Monday. I just can't wait to read even more of this book, but I'm such a slow reader that it takes me a little bit. So, all right, y'all have a wonderful night. And you know what? Hey, I was planning on, as soon as I get this weekend over with this homesteading event, which I'm like nervous about. I'm so nervous about it. So I know I'll do a good job because I'm nervous. Excuse me. But as soon as I get this over with, I'm planning on doing some big goal setting stuff for my mama just texted me, and I'm trying to read that and looked at y'all at the same time. I think my mom was watching part of the live. But I want to do a goal setting thing in February. So if you're someone that is like wants to do some big stuff in this year, it doesn't have to happen in January whenever it's cold as hell. You know what I mean? You still have 11 more months other than January. And I have gotten a lot more people have started doing my subscriber thing. And I have got, as soon as I get this weekend over with, I'm going to be more structured in there. But I share all sorts of extra stuff in there. And I really want to have like a deeper connection with the subscribers that I have. So anyways, hey, on a personal note, I came back from vacation and I started a deworming, because if you think I'm a weirdo for addressing parasites, you are unaware of parasites then. So my husband and I both started a 3-week-long parasite cleanse because we went to Mexico in November and we went to Mexico in January. So we're doing a parasite cleanse. And then today he and I pumped the brakes on the food. He gained like 4 pounds. I gained 3 pounds, but I'm also like 140 pounds bigger than my husband. And so I have he should have gained more. But we both pumped the brakes on the food, and we're not going anywhere again until April. So I am here in February. I'm going to go watch, but we're not spending the night away from the house. I'm going to go watch some MMA fights in February for one night. And then, but we don't leave this house until April. Like every night between now and the latter part of April, I spend the night in my freaking house. So we're really trying to lock in. Somebody asked what I use for parasite cleansing. Right now I'm using ivermectin, and the other one's not approved for human use, so I don't want to talk about that. But then I have we're going to do that one, and then we're actually going to go to a functional medicine doctor. My husband eats a lot of sugar, And so we've got to do a better parasite cleanse on him and using binders. We're going to get a little bit more fancy than our home parasite cleansing. I have something on brandyvonholton.com. It's my website. And then I have this one like drop down where it's like my favorite links, my Amazon links. And I have something on there that we also use, but we're just not using it right now. Right now we're using ivermectin. And but go into my Amazon links and you'll find it. It's like Paragard, but you'll find the exact one that we use that one. We're doing 2 parasite cleanses a year, but gonna go to a functional doctor to, my husband has more of an issue with parasites than what I do, but then we live together, right? And we're on this farm around animals that have to be dewormed all the time. So, oh, somebody says, let me know about how it works. We always feel better after we do a parasite cleanse. So we're trying to pump the brakes on the food. We are trying to get some projects done. And yeah, we're doing parasite cleanse. So yeah, you cannot, there's other countries that they do it once to twice a year. They make fun of Americans for not doing parasite cleanses. Okay. We're an animal. We're an animal, and you're not going to see some long freaking worm that you're eating. No, they're microscopic, and then they're in your body. Anyways, and then they feed off of sugar, and guess what? There's a whole bunch of people that are addicted to sugar. So we're just like, it's horrible. Look up parasite, evidence of parasite. It's not just it's gonna be like brain fog and fatigue and bloating, all sorts of stuff comes from parasites. So used to be real common for people to, deworm themselves and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, I will get off here. I think somebody that's never met me before that just watched this live is going to be like, holy crap, this lady's a weirdo. And they would be right. All right. I will see y'all tomorrow for Mindset Monday.